Okay, hello, good morning and welcome to this RAC live webinar being held in association with Conex Bänninger. And this is on the theme of press fit, a skills revolution for RACHP applications. So we're looking specifically at cooling with refrigeration and air conditioning as well. For those who don't know me, I'm RAC Editor Neil Merrett. I'm glad you can join me today for a series of panel discussions, an exclusive presentation from the team at Conex Bänninger as well about some of the latest market developments for fittings when servicing and managing cooling equipment. Today's event follows on from another webinar we hosted with the company last year, looking at the potential of flame-free fittings for different types of cooling systems. Part of today's discussion is to look at the issues of training and certification tied into that, ensure that any use of press fit tools as an alternative to brazing is well matched to the end needs of different air conditioning and refrigeration projects. I'm going to be talking a bit more about that, particularly in the company's engagement with those matters as we go. But this is included from their end, seeing the company committing to work with individual companies and training bodies and institutions to understand where alternatives to brazing might be an effective option, the most effective option for engineers to perform their work, whether it's servicing or installations as well. There'll be a look at how Conex Bänninger as well look to expand the products it offers in line with different fittings and solutions needed for equipment. I've got plenty of questions myself on the training and market engagement themes, but this webinar is also an opportunity to delve into some of the more technical aspects of adopting flame-free working. As you'll see, we have a Q&A section at the bottom, so throughout, as we pepper through the questions, I'll be putting them to the team we've got there. We're going to endeavour to have them all answered during this 90-minute session today. But if you have any questions, as I said, don't hesitate to put them into the Q&A. You can do that rather than the chat. It's just easier for me to manage and put them through as well. But enough of me rabbiting on. I'm delighted to say that for today's panel, we're joined by Mike Lucken from Conex Bänninger, who's going to be answering a few of my questions and helping make sense of this today. We also have Tom Mason, the company's marketing manager for the UK and Ireland, and also Sam Mason, beg your pardon, a technical engineer as well, who'll be contributing to the discussion and helping us with a few questions about sort of understanding what we're going to be doing there. So I'm going to kick off, so we've got our first panel discussion to introduce the team in person, but we're going to begin on technical considerations and developments when using press fit tools, particularly in these different sort of cooling functions there. So Mike, thank you for joining us, and Tom and Sam as well today. I'm going to kick off, if I may, just to ask you about how the company's sort of press fit technology and services have been adapted and expanded over the course of 2024, and sort of how, I guess, this is reflecting sort of the demand you're seeing from air conditioning, refrigeration engineers as well. I was particularly interested, perhaps, what some of the applications or end users where you're seeing press fit being adopted, or you're getting sort of requests or interest from people as well there.
Okay, so when we launched this press fit product, we had it in sizes from 1/4 to 1 1/8, and we always had the intention to keep adding to that. This year, what we've in the last few months, what we've really launched in addition to what we had already, is we now have the 1 5/8 press fitting range. So we recognise that especially on the air conditioning applications, some of the VRF systems that people were working on were going beyond 1 1/8. So initially and we've had it for a little while now. We initially introduced the 1 3/8 part of the range, and then once we got that going, we started to work on the 1 5/8, which is now available and in the market. So which gives you which will cover nearly all your applications. But one of the things that you have to introduce these things gradually. They take a lot of development and testing and all that sort of thing, which is Sam's area of the business. But tooling wise, etc., you have to get the tools approved along with the jaws. So we use the larger sizes on a 32 kilonewton tool. whereas the smaller sizes up to 1.1 are on a 19 kilonewton tool. The other product that we've introduced, which is hot off the press, if you like, is just starting to become available now, are the Y pieces, again used on the VRF. So what we had what we thought this, as complete a solution as possible for air conditioning and refrigeration installations, but when it comes to the VRF on the Y pieces, where you're going off and reducing down, branches coming off and to different sizes, the Y pieces that come with the air conditioning kits are designed to be brazed. So therefore, we had a gap in there. We were selling a solution, a braze-free solution, but customers that installers that were using this were having to braze off site and adapt the Y pieces they've had to make them press compatible. So we've now brought that in both in an uninsulated and insulated version, which I'll show a picture of later. So hopefully there should be a much more complete solution to an installation than there was before. Depending on what you're doing and the size of the pipe work.
That's interesting. I mean, that complete, you said, obviously, making that much more complete, I think, is probably interesting. Building on, I know we'd had a more general discussion about sort of press fit and cooling last year, so it's interesting you mentioned with VRF about some of the ways the market's developing in that sense, and I guess kind of your interactions with companies are as well. I mean, I was curious to get a view, Mike, with yourself and the team there about what the company views as the type of projects or buildings, I guess, when it's looking for having that more complete solution. I was wondering where perhaps there'd been more, when you were looking to expand the range, what had been perhaps some of the more suitable or perhaps challenging types of project, whether it's building specific, whether it's a type of system, that were kind of, where there was requests, but perhaps you've had to sort of be more supportive of industry when using press fit. And I guess as well, when there's companies sort of coming to you, what are the main considerations in understanding how best a company can go flame free, when you're sort of starting out with them there, about what to consider.
So if I'm talking to a contractor, an installer, if you like, who's considering going flame free, the first and most important thing that I talk about is that the installers themselves should engage in training on the on the product. This is not a it's an engineered solution that gives you all the benefits of press fit. But if you do not store fittings correctly, prepare the pipe properly, and in a lot of cases have a certification, you're going to get a bad experience with it, or it's likely that you would. So, to get a good experience with it, training is essential so that it'll work every time. And then also certification. I'm seeing an increasing number of cases where contractors are coming to me, and if they haven't engaged in a training, and saying, "Oh, we can't start work until we've got a certificate."
Yeah.
And so to make that easy for companies, we have in-person training. In others, we've got people, and it's usually me, that will go out, to visit installers and do the training in person, usually for large groups and whatnot. But what we've also introduced is an online training portal, which has got everything on it, but you can just access it online in the evening from your telephone or whatever and download your own certificate. This is important. There's a lot of companies that I deal with, and it might be, I've dealt with them 4 or 5 years ago, and they have a turnover of staff, and then they need certification. So you don't necessarily need me going out, because there are people on site already, that might be, the foreman, the lead engineer, or something like that. The more experienced guys that they can show and train their own staff. But so we've got that portal in there, and that has been not got any numbers in my head, but it has been very successful, and it's becoming increasingly so, in that we see daily engagement with that online portal, I would say.
Well, that's really interesting, and I guess it's
Yeah.
that. I mean, as you said, with the tool, there's obviously an element of sort of simplification with, and streamlining processes with this. But I guess it's having that, having experts there with people to be able to talk through the process and just, I guess, understand. As you said, I think it's
Yeah.
a good point about making sure how things are, how you keep the connections, how that's all sort of kept in the ways that perhaps probably do seem obvious in some ways, but do have sort of a mark effect on how this works and sort of the ability to put those in.
No, exactly. And then when you're talking about applications, questions I would ask people is about, I mean, the obvious one is fire safety. I would say not as much now, but companies that approached me in the first few years I was working with Conex Bänninger, they were primarily interested in press fitting because they had issues with obtaining hot works permits. In other words, that could be that the hot work permits were not allowed, yeah, or if they were allowed, the caveats around that and the work around it in obtaining that was becoming, it's jumping through hoops. It's becoming expensive. And I think one of the things to consider with that is, some of these are really obvious, yeah, where there's clear and obvious flammability, explosion risk. If you're working on a petrol station, an airport, yeah, the risk is very high then. So if you are allowed hot works, it's something you're really going to have to jump through hoops, shut things down, work out of hours, all that sort of thing. So they're the really obvious ones. And I think companies that are working in those sorts of environments probably converted to press in the early days. And then if you move on, you've got the other thing. You've got people doing jobs in listed buildings, ancient churches, these old universities in Oxford and Cambridge, where, if you do burn the roof out, it doesn't matter how much insurance you put in and whatnot. It's never going to be the same, is it? It's no longer going to be a 500-year-old building. So those sorts of places are obvious. And then, but more importantly, what you see now is where the concern is not so much about actually setting fire to a building. It's just setting smoke alarms off and the problems with evacuating a building. So companies that are working in occupied buildings, and some of those are really obvious, aren't they? If you set a fire alarm off in a hospital or a care home, you're going to have trouble evacuating that. It really isn't acceptable, is it? So you've got that, and that can lead into all sorts of things. If you're in a building, like my colleagues are now in Pensnet, where everybody's healthy, and you set the fire alarm off, and everyone goes and stands in the car park, it's not so much of a problem. And then you go into issues like if you're doing a job in say an air conditioning installation in a shopping centre, and I've come across this before where people have told me, they're putting an air conditioning unit in one shop. So the concern is that you need to isolate smoke alarms. If you're isolating smoke alarms, you have to have a person or more than one person on fire watch, yeah? And all that needs to be paid for, because although you could feasibly evacuate a shopping centre, you're going to be looking at compensation claims. The shoppers will get in their cars and go home that day. So you're seeing more and more things like this with the applications. Some of them are quite unusual that I see. Even for really little things. So we often concentrate, and where BMaxiProd press fit in general comes into its own, and where we would sell a lot of fittings, is on big installations, hotels, big office blocks, that sort of thing, where you've got long pipe runs, lots of fittings and everything. But it is really useful. I spoke to a chap yesterday that had an inquiry. He just wanted to do a compressor change on a London Underground site. So the job would have been quite quick, yeah, but there's an issue there with hot works, etc., with it being underground, and he was just looking for a solution, and a quick conversation about how best to do it. We're always there. People can call myself, or they can call people in our technical department, Sam, etc. Well, probably by email and answer these sorts of questions. You get other applications that I've had more than one company that I've spoken to where they're putting air conditioning on ships and boats. And some of these luxury yachts, for instance, one of the concerns on one of the sites was where they would normally braise, they would use brazing gases and they would be purging the line with nitrogen, as you usually do, but they were working in the hold of a boat where there was insufficient or no ventilation, so actually brazing was posing an asphyxiation risk to them. It's in that sort of application, they're not they're not looking at the time saving aspects or whatever. They're probably going to make one or two joints. And yet something as like just filling the hold of the boat with nitrogen, which is displacing the air, becomes an issue, because if you want to put ventilation below the waterline, you've got to start, I don't know, putting fans in, or I actually don't know how they would do it. So using a press fit system just takes all that sort of thing away, if you see what I mean. Then the other applications, I get phone calls on a daily basis with questions. I'm doing this, I'm doing that with it. What's it good for? I always talk to people about what they're doing on the job. The big draw as well is to say, with the hot works and everything, then you get the speed of installation. If you're working in an occupied building, you've got all the other hot works issues and everything, but you need to be in and out, don't you? You're moving people around and out of the way, and all that sort of thing. People doing installations in hotels. I've got something on the slide later on about it. But if you're working live in a hotel where if you're putting an air conditioning unit in a hotel room, that room is out of action. It can't be rented out. So you've got the whole speed of installation. The speed of installation is not about increasing your profitability. It is as well, yeah, but it sometimes is about working around the around the client, and then the big the big thing at the moment, which I'm hearing more and more about and getting more interest in press as an application, is the fact, because it's a mechanical joint, you always get a clean system. So normally you would nitrogen purge to displace air, therefore oxygen, so you don't get oxidation on the pipe, which can lead to particles in the system, as well as oil contamination, accelerating the degradation of the oil, acidifying the system, etc., leading to compressor burnouts. You've got a clean system there. You do an installation, you're holding the warranty on that, and you can guarantee that straight away. So yeah,
sorry, there might.
No, carry on. Yeah, carry on.
You sort of saying there about that, I guess not all, but that they were mentioning some of those boat projects, and where ventilation, for that specific project, there's a kind of ventilation issue there, and about those there, and kind of reaching out to people. To, as you said, I guess it's a bit about understanding what the project nature is, perhaps explaining, beyond the hot work side, which are perhaps the obvious, that's one of the obvious areas where press fit has a use, that perhaps there are, what are they, where there's kind of challenges, I guess, that perhaps unique to an individual's way of working, or the site there. I mean, I think building on that, we've got a few questions coming in from the audience there, and one of them, building on what you were saying about sort of the clean system and the hot works there, was asking about when they're coming in. They were curious about what risks there may be when applying a sort of solder-free pipe connection. So they've asked particularly, what are the considerations around leakage and the entrance of a substance in refrigeration, or sort of limits on operational pressure there. So that's one of the questions we've sort of seen, just about what are the considerations I don't know if that's yourself or Sam there, but when you're being asked by people about that, what are the risks to consider, or what are the main things to make sure you're getting the best fit with.
Yeah. So where people are concerned about leakage, it's the first thing that anybody thinks about, especially in the early days when when it's not so many people using it, because you're working under F-gas regulations. The systems have to be leak free, and the BMaxi Pro fitting has been designed to be a permanent leak-free solution. Yeah, so they're designed for a continuous maximum operating pressure of up to 48 bar, which is going to cover all your applications. And the fittings, it's all about the O-ring at the end of the day, but they are tested to 144 bar, which is 3 times the 48. Yeah, so they absolutely hang in there. And if you look at it, I'll have a slide in the presentation, but if you look at a picture of one in cross section, what we have here for the strength of the joint, we have a 3-point press. So we press either side of the bead that contains the O-ring, and that gives you the strength of the joint. And then we press on the O-ring, so we compress the O-ring, we oval the O-ring, which is continually recovering its shape, or trying to recover its shape, and that's what gives you the seal. The O-ring's lubricated with silicone oil, which is an important part of the seating process, and that's one of the things that's covered in the training: storage of the fittings. We don't want O-rings to dry out, so they're stored in resealable bags that they're sold in, but also because they're oiled, they're lubricated, they're a bit sticky, so they will pick up debris from the bottom of toolboxes and that sort of thing. So that's all part of the consideration of the training. Anyone that undergoes the training, it usually satisfies all their fears on these things. We've also designed. We have a little thing in there called a hook. So on the end of the fitting, there's a little ring that presses into the pipe as well, and that digs into the pipe. So in an overpressure situation, as the tube expands, the joint tries to pull apart, that whole thing's clamped on there. That ring digs in, and as the tube expands, it actually makes the joint stronger the higher the pressure. So anyone that's worried about pressures and leakage, as long as you followed the installation procedure, you've stored the O-rings correctly, you've prepared and cleaned the pipe properly, done your presses as per the training, that will just go on there. I mean, we literally sell hundreds of thousands of these just in the UK, and we have very little negative feedback on this. It's as perfect as it could be, if you see what I mean.
Yeah,
considering the volumes, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, I know. Building on last year's event and our focus, I know we'll be going in a bit more into the training and considerations in a bit, but it is quite an interesting one you said about the need for on any technology, I guess, and we see it across particularly the heating and cooling sides, that need for suppliers, manufacturers, tool makers to be engaged much more, I think, with industry on understanding it there. I know they sort of one of the questions raised was about sort of failure mode and effect analysis as well. So I think they were just asking about, which I guess from your end, Mike, that comes into training a bit about risk assessments as well, and just making sure that they're understanding.
Yeah, I mean, what's freely available both on our website and you get a copy when you do the training, and we'll have to email it out. We have, and I'm not going to go through them all here, but we have a long list of all the approvals, standards, and test compliances that we have here, and virtually all of them are about holding pressure under. In different circumstances, so under temperature, pressures, vibration, etc., leak testing, vacuum testing, helium leak testing. It goes on and on. There's an awful lot goes into testing these to make them compliant for the application.
Fabulous. That's great, thank you. And I know we'll be sending out after. We have a presentation in a bit, but we'll be sending out some slides and pulling that together. So anyone who's looking for perhaps some of the more visual side, will be sending those out to attendees as well afterwards. So building on a lot of the themes. If you have any questions, we obviously can put you in with Mike and the team as well. I mean, I guess coming on to another question we had there was about the recent launch of the new fittings and the Y joints there. And coming back to that, Mike, and perhaps from Tom's side as well, I wondered why these developments were so important in a sense with the type of systems, particularly the Y joint there. You know, how I was wondering how that just sort of expands out and makes you able to work perhaps on you know, a broader number of projects. I mean, is it just about having a press fit that can meet all these the more unique different components or different challenges in there? I was just wondering about what the new launch is, why that drive had come from.
So these things can you know complete a circle. If you look at when we first launched, we went quarter up to inch and eighth. If you think about it, on the pipe work that gets installed by far and away, probably 95% or more of all the pipe work falls into that range, yeah. But when you get onto the larger systems, by all means, not all the pipe work, because it steps down as it goes around the system or whatever. But you've got smaller amounts of large pipe work that are not covered. So there's applications on refrigeration probably going up 4 1/8 or whatever, but we're probably never going to go there on that sort of application. But our intention, we've got this in development up to 2 1/8. That's probably where we will stop at the moment. Yeah, it's probably not going to affect air conditioning applications, but more for some of the refrigeration applications. It will close the loop for that. But as you say, we get going with it. You look up probably like 95% or more of the installers that take it up initially go with a small 19 kilonewton tool, so they go up to inch and an eighth. Not everybody is working on systems that large. It depends what in what environment and what your customer base is and the size of the project. So we put that out, and then as I said before, the Y piece it's about closing the loop. The installers, even before we had press fittings, you'd have to work away around the problem by working with the limitations that you've got with with the hot works issue. You're still going to do it, but it's about working out of hours, clearing areas, doing fire risk assessments, method statements, and all the things that go with that. Yeah, dealing, transporting, and storing flammable gases like oxyacetylene or always problematic. So we went for. When we launched this in the UK in 2017, so we went all the way until this year without not having the Y pieces, and the product has been it's been very successful, but we were still installers are still having to to work around something. So it's just about closing the circle really, so that we have a complete solution.
Yeah, that's brilliant. It's it's a really interesting one for us, I think, seeing how even from last year's event, how it all kind of moves on, and I guess the engagement, the types of engagement, type of projects that we'll be talking about in a bit, and that you're seeing there as well. And there is another question. It might be a technical one, and that's what we're glad to see you going through, but. Questions about requirements on the degree of piping. They've got vibration there, so someone was asking if there's any effect when using this with pipe vibration. I guess that's those considerations you get when
the Maxi Pro fitting's been a press fitting with with an O-ring, an HMBR O-ring. They cope very well with vibration. That they have passed the UL 109-8 vibration test. They're compliant with that. I don't know, Sam, have you got any data on the vibration, on frequencies or anything like that? Resonance.
Yeah, the test we carry out at UL to approve the fitting is generally over it's a 24-hour period, so it's quite an intensive test with very harsh and very frequent vibrations at a very fast rate. But in regard to the tube specification, and I also, one of the other questions was about FMEA, which kind of links quite well, is that one of the things we looked into when we were developing it, and when we do develop the product going forward, is the grade of tube, and especially the wall thickness of the tube. So this is where we may have had looked at how there could be a failure mode on the fitting, and that's why we supplied the product with a tube compatibility chart. And also when we test in new jaws, slings, or any new sizes, we go through a very extensive test program to ensure that we cover all bases, not just the fact that it is working up to the 48 bar. We also cover things like tube collapse. We cover wall tightness testing, PTV, which is done at external laboratories. So that's your pressure, temperature, vibration. And we also did the same from a jaw compatibility. So it's jaws and tube kind of work very closely together to ensure that we get the appropriate results, so we can be confident when we put it into the market that we can honour and surpass the 25-year guarantee with the confidence.
So it's not just going to the standards; it's making sure that the expected standards. I guess having that you've covered the bases for those variables, and the small bits beyond that where there can be an issue.
Exactly. When we're testing our products, we ensure that we're testing it to the harshest conditions, so we're confident to give the warranties that we do. It's all based on technical data which has been done internally and externally with laboratories.
Brilliant. That's great there. And thank you for putting them in, Sam. While we've got you all here, I'll push on with some of the questions we've got coming in from the audience as well. But there was a question about sort of, again, building on that. I think some of those issues about with the piping press fit technology, whether it's sort of compliant with the PED requirements there. But sort of asking about sort of Cat 1, Cat 2. Are fittings automatically rated for PED categories for piping? I think it's sort of some of those questions we're seeing from individuals, individual users about their needs, sort of specific there.
Yeah, I mean the PED requirement of the Maxi product, we've actually got certificates on our website which reference this, and certificates of conformity to all the different standards, including PED, Pressure Equipment Directive. Because I mean, I could sit here and go through all the standards, but it could be really nice. But in our website, we do supply these certificates of conformity, and if there's ever any requests, say, for a specification of a job, this is the type of items that myself deals with supplying the customer to ensure that they meet the specifications of the installation.
Fabulous. That's great. I know that's I know with these we can go on quite a lot.
Just to jump in on something, just to add something that Sam said there, anyone that's listening that's thinking of or already installing these, if they want certificates of compliance to any of these standards or whatever, for specific batches they're using, because we make these in an ISO 9001 facility, so we've got traceability back to raw materials, etc. We do get asked for it occasionally, but we usually need the batch information on the back of the bag. And there's a whole load of codes and date codes there. And what I always say to people is, if you're working in those kind of environments, government stuff, ministry, defence, that sort of thing, where they always ask for these sorts of things, either photograph or save the bag, because anything that's batch specific, we need to we need that that date, that batch date on there, and it's the only way we can do it is to keep hold of the bag and then send us that information, rather than try to work out when it was bought, when it was made, etc. Yeah.
I guess that's the engagement, Mike, that you guys have there. That it's making sure, I guess, that you understand. Yeah, even in those ways, it's.
We get content. So some of the stuff I think you can just take straight off the website, but anything you need, certification or certificates of compliance, any installers, they can either that they can, through the website, they can contact our technical department, but maybe Sam will reply to it, or they can contact me directly. It's it's all very we're very accessible. You just go onto our website and there's all the contacts listed there, telephone numbers and emails. So quite happy to take telephone calls from the field as well if people have got questions, or they're looking at something on site and they want a bit of advice on it.
Well, that's brilliant. I mean, that probably brings us quite neatly, because we're going to move on now from thinking about from the technical side. We'll be coming back, I think, and there'll be more sort of some of the discussions about the technical nature and certification for the next session that we're going to have, which we're going to be talking like a bit more about the training side and kind of your work, projects with them on that. But we going to move on shortly now to, we've got actually presentation coming from Conex Bänninger themselves. So like the team are going to be perhaps talking a bit more about the tech now, and a lot of this stuff will be sending out to attendees afterwards. But do keep sort of your questions coming in. We'll be running those through. But yes, I think we were going to quickly, if it's right, Mike, I'll turn to you to take over on about the company's work and development of how it's looking at air conditioning and refrigeration, particularly at the minute.
So I'm going to do a short presentation on the BMax Pro fittings. I'm just going to share the screen. Hopefully that will all come up nicely.
We're going to run like clockwork. I'm giving you that guarantee, he says now.
Okay, there. So hopefully we can all see that. So that's just obviously the headline slide there. So just need to okay, so a little bit about Conex Bänninger. We're a British-based company based in Kings Winford in the West Midlands, and we've 110 years of innovation, but I think we're up to 115 now. The company started in 1909. I'm not going to go deep into the history of it. So we've been subject to to mergers and sales and that sort of thing, but we exist in the present form based in Kings Winford as Conex Bänninger. We are a leading manufacturer of copper and brass fittings and valves, and with a lot of the products we sell, we are a global we're a global market leader. Yeah, so we've got an extensive range of copper and brass fittings and valves, etc. And we service the plumbing and heated industries, as well as the air conditioning and refrigeration industries of that. And I think it's quite important. We've been at this a long time. This is not and a lot of the products that we sell, including BMax Pro, they've been developed and built on the experiences of fittings that we've developed over the years. Yeah, so it's not something that we just plucked out of thin air, if you see what I mean. So talking about the BMax Pro fittings, as I said before, number one, we talked a lot about this. They're flame free, yeah, and all those applications that we talked about earlier. If you've got any issues with that, then press fitting like BMax Pro is certainly something you should be looking at. The big draws then come in lower installation costs. So although there's an outlay for a tool, and you can see by the fitting is an engineered solution with with all its testing and its HMBRO ring, etc., and all the development costs. But it does work out cheap in the long run, because it's so fast that you save so much time in labour costs, yeah, and all the other costs associated with nitrogen purging and all the back office work with dealing with hot work permits and people on fire watches and everything, that you're going to save money. You've got higher productivity and flexibility. The first joint you'll ever make will be as good as the last one you'll ever do, because once you've done the training, the machine does all the work. So therefore, you don't have to have the most skilled person on site. You can you can train up and use pipe fitters, or get your apprentice doing the work, and pretty quickly and be confident. Don't need a nitrogen purge because it's a mechanical joint, and that saves you using nitrogen unnecessarily, and guarantees you a clean joint every time as well. We've got all the certification we talked about earlier, the UL 207 certification, etc. And these fittings that for people that are trained, we put a guarantee of 10 years on there, free for any manufacturing defects, and the fitting has a design life of a minimum of 25 years. And that's probably over to Sam's department a little bit more, but you know, we do an oven aging accelerated life cycle test to give it a minimum of a 25-year lifetime, which will outlive any equipment or the installation. A little bit about the technical data on it. So it's, you know, it's what we're about, aren't we, today? Air conditioning, refrigeration. That is the that's the application. It's for copper to copper only, and it must be obviously refrigeration grade copper. You know, all done in the UK, at least all in imperial sizes. There are some applications you see that have been from things that have been in the past where there is some aluminium pipe on certain sites. It's not a lot of it. If you ever come across that, anyone that's doing that and they're doing remedial works on that, you know, changing pipe work or moving stuff around and everything, you cannot put the press fittings onto aluminium pipe. You've got dissimilar metals. You run a risk of galvanic corrosion. If you get aluminium pitting under an O-ring, it won't work. So you'd have to redo that in copper, which comes up occasionally. Fittings quarter inch, the smallest size, all the way up to 1.5 inch. HMBR O-ring, which we talked about before. It's a highly tough and durable substance, heavily used in the automotive industry for seals. It gives it its compatibility with the refrigerant gases in the system, the oils in the system, the pressures and the temperature ranges, which we'll come to in a minute. It's approved for all everybody seems to be using, or everybody is using POE, polyesterol, at the moment. So it's not a problem. Maximum operating pressure 48 bar. They're tested to 144 bar. And the O-ring, the continuous operating temperature range is -40 to +121 degrees. Refrigerant compatibility is compatible with all the commonly used refrigerants. This is an ever-changing scene, as anybody that works in this industry will know. You know, refrigerant volumes are being phased down and phased out. At the moment, you know, first of all, you have the CFCs with their ozone depletion, but now it's about their global warming potential. So this is why we've got them listed here with the GWP. So the ones with the higher GWPs you see here have been, you know, phased down and out. 410A has been replaced with R32 on air conditioning applications with its lower GWP of 675. In other words, it's equivalent, a ton let out into the atmosphere is the equivalent of a ton of 675 tons of carbon dioxide. So as the new ones come out, we test them. So I've been getting inquiries recently about things like 454A and B with their lower global warming potentials, and you'll see this ever changing. Things like R32, 675 is a lot lower than it was as a GWP, but it is still quite high. So you know, in the future we'll see more use of the HFOs lifted at the top with their very low GWPs, and also of the hydrocarbon refrigerations listed down at the bottom, R290, etc. I had an inquiry about R290 only yesterday. That they are all approved. We're not using it, can't use it for ammonia, heavily used on industrial refrigeration. We're not using copper pipe on that anyway, and we can't use it for carbon dioxide, CO2, which is all used in pretty much supermarket retail refrigeration. We do have a product for that. That's for another day, but we have our K65 fitting, which is our high pressure fitting. It's a brazed fitting up to 130 bar, but today we're concentrating on press. We do a lot of work with tools, probably something that Sam does a lot with. We basically have jaws approved by 3 manufacturers, or 4, Rothenberger, Novapress, Rems, etc. A lot of these jaws are interchangeable, so there's a whole raft of tools that we've approved, and in our technical manual we have a tool stroke jaw compatibility. So if you take the B Maxi Pro jaws, in a lot of cases, if you're working in multi-disciplines, maybe companies that are already using press and plumbing, etc., if they have a press tool already that they want to convert over, they could just buy the jaws, but always check the tool compatibility chart, and also decide whether you want to use a 19 kilonewton tool or a 32 kilonewton tool. The 32 kilonewton tools obviously will do all applications, all the way from the larger sizes down to 1/4. But if you're only working on small size pipe, they tend to be a bit more weighty. So actually, most people that come in that enter into this do buy the 90 kilonewton tools initially. So it's just a matter of deciding what you want. Anybody that wants any advice on tools, all they need to do is get in contact with us, and we can talk them through what the options are. As I said, I did cover this before about the looking at this fitting in cross section, and you can see here with the little arrows where we have a press either side of the bead that contains the O-ring. That gives you the strength of the joint. You can see on the end of there the little hook that's in there, this little ring that digs in. It gives it that extra strength. The press on the O-ring, that's your seal. That's the important part, and that's what gives you the seal. Which is why it's important to make sure that you do the tube prep properly. You don't get any bits of swarf or grit or any gouges in the pipe or anything under that. It's nice and clean and everything. Obviously the O-ring will work its way into micro scratches, but you don't want anything that's bridging that. One of the things with these things, as I said before, with the pressure test, that is that hook that really does make it hang on there, and you cannot get that when that fitting's on. I've tried this before. You can bend a piece of pipe over your knee, and you will tear the pipe before you get that fitting off. Don't encourage anyone to try that, but yeah. As I say before, and it's very quick. Once you press it, it's a 5-second press cycle. As I said before, we've now produced these Y pieces, which we call B-flow technology. As they've been tested up, they're as all the other fittings, they're designed for a maximum operating pressure of 48 bar, and they are tested up to 144 bar as other fittings. So as you can see here, but basically what they are, on the proprietary ones that come with the air conditioning units, they're designed to be brazed, so they come with either a socket or multiple sockets on the end, designed to be cut to size, which are obviously the wrong sizes because they've been they've been swaged to take a braze, and these are just basically a blank piece. So they're available in sizes from 3/8 up to 1 1/8, and then they're designed to be used in conjunction with fittings and reducers. So you might want to, I can't see what this one is. So this is a 5/8 piece. Yeah, you might have a 5/8 fitting on the end like that. You might have a 5/8 there. You might have a 5/8 to 1/2 inch or 3/8 reducer pressed on there. So they're press compatible. We also have them pre-lagged as well, so that's how they work. So anyone working on a VRF system where you've got a branch off to individual indoor units, there's the full solution. We've also introduced the 1 5/8. One of the considerations at the moment you've got to look at when pressing 1 5/8, just make sure you just get the right tool and jaw for it. So it is all in the technical manual. Anybody that's looking at the larger sizes, I would ask myself the question: if you want the 1 3/8, you're probably looking at working in a sort of arena where you might be doing 1 5/8 as well. So personally, I would get the tool that's compatible with the 1 5/8. So maybe like one of these, a NovaPress AC203XL, because that will go down to everything. So if you're going to do that, just go to the largest size, and then you'll be completely covered. As I say, these larger tools will go all the way down to 1/4 as well. So you don't have to buy 2 tools if you don't want to. We've got a little video here of the installation process, which I'm going to talk through. We've got Sam doing this, and we're going to use 1 5/8" fitting because it's new rather than the smaller one. So when we've done them in the past, we've always done them with the small ones. So a new. So hopefully everyone can see this. So I'm going to talk through exactly what he's doing here. So got this set up in a place here. So we always cut the tube with a rotary tube cutter. No hacksaws, chop saws, or anything like that. It's got to be a nice clean cut. So Sam's just going to cut an end off there. Didn't take too much longer. He's got that. So we're going to push a fitting onto this, yeah. So we've got to push that pipe through an O-ring. So what we don't want to do is risk nicking that O-ring or catching and partially pushing it through, unseating it, if you like, with a sharp piece. So first of all, what Sam's doing, he's going to deburr that. He's going to break the edge, put a little chamfer on the end with a barrel reamer. That's the way to do that. And then using the pencil reamer, he's going to take any swarf, angling the tube down out from the inside there. So you don't, for two reasons, you don't want to get any swarf inside the tube, obviously, from the point of view of Beam Maxi Pro, you don't want a bit curling back over the O-ring. He then cleans that with a Rothley cloth, a cleaning pad. Don't use emery cloth; it's too rough. Don't use wire wool; it leaves bits on the pipe, which could get under the O-ring. It's a 3-point press. So what Sam's going to do now, he's going to mark the depth using the depth gauge. This is just used as a reference point, because in a live situation, you might be setting these up and then feeding pipe along, in sealing voids or through holes in walls and pulling it back, etc. Maybe making a bend with a pipe bender or whatever. So you need to make sure that's pushed up all the way to the stop and stays there. It's very easy when you're moving pipe around for it to move away. If you move the pipe out of the fitting and it's only partially engaged, you end up either not getting the 3-point press, or even worse, pressing the O-ring behind the pipe, so it's not actually sitting on the pipe and making the seal. So assembles this. So what he's got here on the 32 kilonewton tool is he's got a jaw and adapter. So he's put a sling around the jaw is a sling type, so it gets it all the way around on the larger size, and then there's an adapter that pinches that sling up. So on the 1 5/8" and the 1 3/8", you have this kind of jaw, and the on the smaller sizes, caught up to 1 1/8", you see the jaws that I showed on the previous slide. So that was how quick and easy that was. It's finished before I even start talking about it. What Sam does then, he marks that tube and even signs it to show that he's done it. The reason he does that is it's actually one of the more important parts of the of the process. Marking the tube beforehand to make sure it doesn't move, and marking it afterwards. Often in a live situation, you're going to be working in poor light conditions. It's difficult to tell the difference between a piece of tube that is pressed and one that hasn't been pressed. So you've got two problems there. One, you can forget to do one, not the end of the world, because it's going to fail your pressure test. But two, you might accidentally do it twice, and you don't want to do that. A Beam Maxi Pro fitting should be pressed once and once only. If you press it again, there's a chance you're going to put the jaw in a slightly different position, or the sling in a slightly different position. You're going to flatten out the pinches where you've taken up the excess material, and you could lift the O-ring, causing a leak. You can't take any more pinches because the material is really compressed. So it's really important to make sure you don't do it more than once. I don't know what the effect of that. I don't know, Sam, have you tried that on an 1 5" on the larger fittings with the sling, moving them around? Because it definitely, on the standard jaws, you definitely don't want to do it here. I don't know what the effect is on a sling.
You have to press once, and the consideration is over compressing the seal as well.
Exactly.
You can also over compress the seal, so that's why we ensure that you only press once, and it's always tested being pressed once.
It's about getting back on those pinches, isn't it, and deforming the O-ring. So I'm just going to stop sharing now. Sorry, I'm not going to. I'm just going to go to the next slide. Hopefully that will. I've gone into that again. Sorry, guys. Just need to.
That's right, no worries, mate. That's it's always the way. Put a swish video in.
Oh, here we go. No, it was just stalling a bit, so I just have to go back. So, and there we go. So here's a few of the applications. I think it was just that movie was holding it up a little bit. So as I say, some of the things we've looked at, so some of the applications you can, VRF systems, some of the fittings that we've got that we can use. That we talked about the Y pieces already. We have obviously various elbows and connectors and reducers, etc., that we can use on those as we're sort of like going around corners and stepping down and whatnot. The other thing we have, which is really handy, and they prove very popular, are the flare adapters. So if you've got a system and you've got multiple indoor units, I did speak to a chap that had 120 indoor units to fit on some student accommodation a few years back, and yeah, therefore, if he was flaring them on, he'd have to make 240 flares. And he said that it saved him so much time, and we do sell a lot of these. So with a flare adapter, you can flare onto on an indoor unit where the connections are flare and carry on in press, and it purely is a time saving exercise, and you get a machine made and tested flare as well. So yeah, all about time saving on that one. You've got all same sort of thing, multi-split units. You can use the same thing. We've got T's, etc. So you can use those same applications with those heat pump installations. So actually, I'm getting more and more requests for training and advice for people that fit in heat pumps. So a lot of the heat pumps that are made by boiler manufacturers that go into domestic applications, etc., they are designed to be fitted by people in the plumbing and heating trade, because so therefore the refrigeration circuit is integral, so they don't have to touch it. But there are applications, some of them where the outdoor unit is remote, so you do have to make a joint in the refrigeration pipe work, and so they come in really handy then. A lot of these guys are pressing all the water fittings anyway. They just have to buy a jaw. So that is we're seeing more and more interest from that sector in this product. And then on the other side, not to forget, we talk a lot about air conditioning because that's where all the long pipe runs are and everything. But obviously, refrigeration pipe work, we can use this on cold stores as well. So it is a lot of the installers work in refrigeration and air conditioning, because at the end of the day, it's the same technology. So it is all there for there as well. As I said before, anyone thinking of using this, before you start using it, engage in the training. You get a certificate to say that you've been trained, so you're authorised to use it. It gives you the guarantee, and doing the training just ensures that that you know all the installation procedures. If you do the training in person, you get to have a go as well of making a joint before you do one actually in the field. Like with anything, anyone that that takes the online training, I always say to them, do the online training, make sure you're happy with it, make a joint on a piece of pipe before you do one that's actually going to contain refrigerant and everything, so you get used to how it feels and how the O-ring pushes in and all that sort of thing. But as I say, if you do it with me, you can get that. Training is available. So training is available with myself online, but also you can ask your training provider if they could provide training as well. So we do go out to colleges, and this time of year I'm talking to loads of them. So this just shows a scene of one where I've gone and done BMAXI Pro training at Dudley College. I think on that day, that was last year, over a course of 2 or 3 days, I did everything from years one to 3 of the of their BTEC or Sitting Guilds apprentices, and I do the same in colleges up and down the country. So if you're looking at that, ask your training provider if they do that as well. We're always happy to do that, to go into colleges and do that. There's little quotes there from the people that do it and whatever. I'm not going to go into loads of these. One of the ones we looked at the moment with a company in Milton Keynes, MVP Pro, they had they were fitting or refitting air conditioning in the hotel, 190 fan coils to be fitted. The hotel's live, it's got guests in there. So they did not want to have to deal with hot work permits, and they needed to be in and out of each room, I think in a day or something like that. You know, they had to be quick, and that they used BMaxi Pro. I think I attended that. They were there for a long time, and I think I did 2 training sessions with staff there. So where they brought in some extra labour, I went and did a training session with them there as well, and they were more than pleased with that. So that worked out really well for them. And that one was all about that. I would say that's a typical case of you know, why people want to use it. It's a hotel, it's live. Nobody wants to be going in and out of rooms with oxyacetylene. They don't want to have fire alarms isolated, and they want to get those rooms back online as quickly as possible. And that ends the presentation. So I'll stop sharing there.
Fabulous, thanks, mate. We had
was my timing good there? That's
pretty much, yeah. Hey, look, it's all good content in our modern media age, but it's I think, as you said, it's kind of interesting one, and it leads more importantly into, we're obviously going to be talking a bit more about certification and training now. And I think before we move on, there was a few questions I know we'll be following up with people afterwards. There was a few things about jaw compatibility with different tools there. Would that be online in the information packs you've got, Mike, for people who might be asking about, you know, where if certain jaws, you know, would work with certain tools? What would be?
So in our technical brochure, I think it's on pages 18 and 19, we've got 2 pages of tool compatibility, both for the 19 kilonewton and 32 kilonewton tools. In other words, 19 kilonewton up to 1.1 and 32 kilonewton up to 1.5 at the moment, or 2 1/8, both on. In the UK, we don't really see this, but it's both on metric and imperial. But for the UK, which we're concerned with, it's all imperial. We do occasionally get the odd request for adapters where people have equipment that's come with metric fit, you know, metric sizes, and they want to adapt to the pipe, and we do have a little range of adapters somewhere as well. The other thing we got with tooling as well, you can buy inch jaws, which we don't use in the UK because we go 7/8 and 1.1/8, but there is equipment out there that comes, because in other parts of the globe and where things are made, there is inch pipe used. And I do occasionally get people asking that, because the adapter kits they use are designed to be brazed, so you go on site and so we do inch to standard sizes, you know, inch to 1.1/8 adapters as well, but you need to have the jaw. I think a lot of the kits come with the jaw in them already. Most of the time they're redundant, so if you come across that, just make sure you've got an inch jaw, and those fittings are available. So just remind you, might find your wholesalers not necessarily stocking them because they won't sell them every day, but they're available very quickly from us.
I was going to say, I mean, would that information be, I mean, obviously we'll have the contact detail, we'll be sending out to people afterwards for obviously contact details.
All that information is in our technical brochure. So if you look through the fitting range, you will see all the permutations that we have, all the adapters, reducers, etc. And the jaws. It's just sometimes it's not obvious because you spend your whole life working with a certain range of sizes, and you see something different, and then you know, and you might just need to check with us. But so hopefully we've got everything covered.
Yes, I think so. It's
and if you haven't, ask us about it.
Yes, well, that's certainly. We'll be making sure we send out the contact details for people to follow up with the team after this as well. I know there's some questions. We're looking at the cooling and air conditioning today, but I know there's some questions there about potential for external air source heat pump units for multi-house developments and stuff. To which we'll make sure those contact details are there.
So people want, if there are companies working in multidisciplines and they're interested in not only in our BMaxi Pro range, but in our range of fittings for for plumbing and heating applications, we have a full range of, just need to go on our website, contact us, and we'll advise you of that tooling, the whole lot.
Well, let's be. I mean, that brings us. I said we'll be moving into the final panel for today. So thanks, Mike, the team, for presentation there. I mean, I think really it's not a different session as such. We're just building on some of the training skills and some of the points we finished up on about the certification there, and kind of how those needs are being met. I mean, I guess to start broadly, Mike, when you talk about, as you said, you've got the online training, and you've been doing some, obviously, going out and talking to people on that as well. I know it's an interesting one, because obviously when we talk about press fit, in many ways, with getting around sort of hot works issues there, and sort of simplifying existing, installation processes. I was wondering what training in the technology actually sort of entails in that sense. You know what I mean? I mean, it obviously beyond the using the equipment, I guess some of the main, what are the main points you try and highlight about good practice and understanding, I think, how it's being used.
When I do the training in person, a lot of the things I cover, the beauty of BMXC Pro is it's simple, yeah. So the training is not complicated. So I always, when I sum up the training, I always say, number one, keep the fittings in the bag so they're protected, so they don't dry out, and you don't compromise the you protect the O-ring. Yeah, number one, keep them in the bag. Number two, cut and prepare the tube. In other words, deburr inside and out. Yeah, clean it, check it for any damage or deep scratches. Yeah, mark the depth, put the fitting on, press it, mark it afterwards, so you don't accidentally do it twice. And it's as simple as that. I mean, in a nutshell. But obviously, in doing it, what we talk about is not just like that process, but I'm able to talk about the reasons why we do things and demonstrate, show them, this is why we're getting the swarf off. This is what it does. I talk about, it being a clean system, and I've got slides that show what happens if you don't nitrogen purge, and all that sort of thing. Talk about the applications, etc., etc. And then there's a questionnaire at the end. So it's 15 multiple choice questions. We just cover all things, there's all sorts of questions on there that just part of the training. Some of it is what's the operating pressure maximum, what's the temperature range, you've got to remember them, but also like common sense things about not making sure that you maintain minimum distances between fittings, so you can't butt them up close to each other, making sure about we talk about doing fittings on unstressed pipe work, and any bends you make with tube benders, keeping it away from the fitting, etc., etc. So it can be as in depth as you like it. Training I have, sometimes I do the BMXC Pro training with very experienced engineers that maybe have used press in the past on other applications or whatever, and they it's all very simple to them. But when I do it with apprentices or college students, I get a lot of questions around the subject, about refrigerant phase outs and all that sort of thing. And while they're not necessarily I'm always willing to talk about those things, why we're doing things, why we're testing things, why refrigerants are being phased out, that sort of thing. It might not be directly involved in me selling the product, but we can talk about that and the applications, etc. So yeah, it's always I think it's always good to engage in that training, and look at why. Not always like this is how you do it, but also think about why you do things as well. You see what I mean?
Yeah, the process. I mean, yeah, to understand that's always an important.
Yeah, and just having a go of it, having getting the feel of it. Always give everyone an opportunity to make a joint before they start, and discuss the applications that they're working on at the moment. I mean, what one of the things we look at, and I always talk about this in the training, is where where you're doing things like fitting compressors, where you might have sockets on where the compressor joins that are designed to take a braze, but can you cut that off and use the pipe behind it? You need, if you do that, is it too close to where it's brazing the pot, and is that pipe necessarily the same size as the socket? In other words, if it's designed to take a quarter braze, is it quarter pipe behind it, or is it metric sizes which you can't use? On scroll compressors, what problems they present, branch distribution boxes, etc., to just the importance of making sure that you've got enough room to do the join. Do you need to dress it before you put it in place, because you might not be able to get the jaw to something that's near a ceiling, all that sort of thing. And I know most of these guys that are doing these installations, they have to work around that's part of the job, isn't it? Like solving problems on site, but we're always willing to discuss these things with people.
That's great. I mean, I guess building on that, sort of, it was interesting when we were talking earlier about the certification side of that, and I was kind of interested some of the crucial aspects of that for insurance competence, but also I know you were mentioning there's different certifications for sort of end user needs depending that's there. I was wondering if that also factored into being part of accreditation or being parts of the press fit systems can be recognised, whether it, in broader initiatives, both around safety, but perhaps things like embodied carbon, or to fit in to demonstrate kind of how the tool can sort of play a part, I guess, in understanding the value and economic or time wise. I was just wondering the scope of the certification there. What can you sort of offer in that sense to make sure people are able to tie that in?
Are you talking about the certification on the training at that point?
That's right. Sorry. Yes. Beg your pardon. Yeah. I was wondering how that, does that?
Yeah. So what we're basically saying is that with the training, it's quite simple. We're just saying that in issuing that certificate, we're saying that person has undergone training in press fitting on BMaxic Pro by Conex Bänninger, yeah, and in passing the test, we're satisfied that they understand how to store, prepare, and make a joint, and we're happy to give that that joint a 10-year warranty, effectively, yeah, or that press, if you see what I mean. And in some ways that is a bit of a carrot to to get them to do the training, do it right in the first place, because if something went wrong, it would go wrong when you're doing it, not in 5 years' time or whatever. Yeah, once it's on, if you see what I mean. And you can see when you look at it in cross section, when you look at all the certification standards testing we've done on this, and the life cycle tests and everything. What would compromise a joint is not storing the O-rings properly. In other words, they're drying out, or they're picking up contamination which gets between the O-ring, or that you've damaged the pipe. Damaged pipe, bits of swarf on it, that have cut O-rings, that sort of thing. That's what causes the problem. So in doing the training, you're basically getting an understanding of the process of the storage and tube prep and the press, how to use the press fit tool. And it's not complicated, it's not. I don't think anyone's taken it and said, oh, that looks too difficult, because what it demonstrates is how much easier it is than brazing. We did a training with a lot of our salespeople that work on the plumbing side, and they undertook a basic refrigeration principles course, yeah, which was laid on for us by the Bayer Academy up at their facility in Wetherby. And one of the things we did on that, we obviously we all know about press fitting, but we had everybody making flares and brazing, so they could just see how complex it was, if you see what I mean, and then leak testing them. And what it showed, while people that are skilled at these things, if you're experienced, you'll make a braze and it will be good. It will hold. There's nothing wrong with it, and the same with flares. But what it actually demonstrated was people that are new to it, that could make a perfectly good press. I think every single braze that we did and every single flare went wrong. it wouldn't hold. It was messy. It was, and it's you're having to deal with nitrogen purging. It's there's multiple things you've got to do there. Whereas it just demonstrates everybody, the difference between brazing and pressing. But obviously, if you're doing it the first time.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, as you said, because I know it's a lot of talking about that simplification, but very interesting talking about the working with the plumbing side as well, and how that fit, the transferable level of skills we're seeing at the minute, with that coming in as well. I mean, I was going to ask, I know you've been working with Dudley there on Dudley College. So I was going to ask, I thought it was interesting, Mike, talking about the training you do when you're sort of going out. And I know you were mentioning it's offering, kind of tailoring it to whether, there could be more experienced people with press fitting. I guess if you're doing apprentices, students, people working on their level 3s there, that, you're working it there. I was wondering really how over the last year you've sort of seen that relationship with going out to training academies and partnerships there. I wondered, is that something you're expecting to continue, whether it's with Dudley or other training colleges? And what?
Yeah, so you usually it becomes when I first go to a college. So I did Dudley actually approached me through one of your webinars, which we did last year. So I didn't have a relationship with them before, and they're not the only college that I go to. And what we usually happens is the first year I go several times and do all the classes, and then after that it's less. So Dudley I did 3 classes last year, and this year I've done 1 because I'm just there's a new cohort coming in every year, so it becomes easier for me. Once you catch up, but some of the colleges lay on. They do block release and this sort of thing, and they have more requirement for it. It depends on what they're doing basically. We're always happy to do that. So if there's anybody that's signed in, that's listening, that that hasn't engaged with us, yes, please please get in contact. We'll be happy to do that.
Fabulous. I mean, I guess it's an interesting one as well, where obviously, you were mentioning brazing, and we've talked about the skills side of that. I mean, I was kind of curious. I mean, I know previously in the last year we were talking about, this is about really, it's a complementary tool. It's a complementary skill set alongside brazing there. I mean, is that some of the part of the focus when you are going out sort of talking, perhaps to students and people coming in as well, who may in different ways be doing their brazing skills as well? I'm wondering that sort of delineation between like understanding what how and when press fit's being used best, or how that fits alongside brazing.
So everybody can do their own take on this. So because one of the things I always open with, especially when I'm speaking to people of experience or people that are learning, I always say there's nothing wrong with brazing in a method of joining the pipe. It works. We all know that. For a long time it's been the recognised way of doing this. But the BMAXI Pro is there where where brazing is either not possible or not desirable for all sorts of reasons, hot work, speed of installation, or whatever. And everybody takes their own thing from it. So you'll see some companies will do it and they'll say, I would say, especially in the early days, most installers came to us for this because they were having issues with hot works. But what they found, and you almost have to prove it, because I'll tell you how quick it is and how much time you save and etc. etc. But I'm trying to sell the system, obviously, so you almost have to use it to prove it yourself. And then so what we find is that people they'll take it on for a job with where there's a hot works issue. They'll realize how quick and clean it is, and carry on using. That's what we hope they'll do. They carry on using it, and they do. That's the feedback that I get. But there are certain applications, so until we just recently introduced this Y joint, then you would have had to braze that, wouldn't you? The same with inch and 5/8. We haven't introduced it 2 1/8 yet. So if you've got larger sizes, you're still going to have to join that pipe in some way. If you're looking at something like, say you're doing a compressor change, and now normally the compressor is going to be on the outdoor unit, so you might not be so subjected to hot works, yeah. You might still choose to braze that in and out. It might be the easiest way to do it. You know, if you've got no hot works, then you're going to have to sort of dress a compressor off site with a piece of pipe. So you know what I was saying about like checking that the socket on the compressor, the stub that takes the pipe, is designed to be brazed. If there's no way around that, what you would do, you would dress that with, you know, I don't know, 30 centimeters of pipe or something like that. So you'd have to braze that on off site, go in, cut the old compressor out, and if you've got no hot works, press that in there. So you still, you know, for applications like that, you would still need to know how to braze. It's still a necessary skill, yeah. You know, you might find it, if hot work's not an issue, for a compressor change, you might find it easier to do that. You know, if you're doing a scroll compressor on an air conditioning unit, it's certainly going to be complex to do anything to do it any other way, because those compressors are designed to take a braze connection, and due to space constraints, it might not be possible to to dress it. But however, sometimes there's costs involved in that sort of thing. I've seen companies where they've taken refrigerated cabinets off site on a flatbed truck back to a workshop to do a compressor change, and that is there's the costs in doing that add up, don't they, in time and whatnot.
So it's, yeah, I guess it's understanding, and I think a theme of today we've been talking a bit about is understanding, you know, as you said, it'll be the needs of your project, the sort of the skills, you know, the time and the costs, how that factors into it.
So same with the flare fittings. If you're you know, we're not saying you don't need to have these skills. If you're using the BMaxi Pro flare fittings because of the speed of installation, and you get to the end of a 200 fan coil unit job, and you're four short, and you've got to finish today, and you can't wait till tomorrow for them, you're going to have to make that flare yourself, aren't you? So you know that those skills still come into play. Or if you've got the wrong size or something like that, and you don't want to, you know, it would take you more time to go and order them or go and get them. So you know, all the at the end of the day, these installations, whether they be air conditioning or refrigeration, they're an engineering application, and everybody needs to have all the skills they need. But you know, we find that this press fitting has, I think, revolutionised things on speed of installation and the whole hot works issue at the same time.
That's brilliant. I mean, I was going to. I mean, I think as we're coming towards the end, I mean, as we always say with this mic, we can sort of talk sort of specifics on a lot of these projects, and I know it's a big part of the job of what you're here to do today. But I was going to ask, you know, I think as a broad training point, and to build on some of the questions we've had, from obviously as a supplier of the tech yourselves, I was wondering, you know, when it comes to when you're dealing with, or, you know, like today, where you might have organizations or individuals that haven't used press fit tools, or perhaps they're unsure about making it work best for them or their type of projects. You know, I was wondering what sort of starting point sometimes when you go out and talk to people about, you know, their considerations, whether, you know, is it looking at whether their needs are cost, whether is it looking about hot works. I was wondering kind of the broad message, I guess, you go out to people who perhaps don't know the tech really, or perhaps as you said, they've always brazed, that's kind of just what they know. So I was wondering how you go out, in a sense, to a broad industry. You know, what starting points would you say for them to consider or to think about where they might want to, you know, could implement press fit in some way, or in their career?
Yeah. So the questions I ask people are simple. Initially, do you face issues with hot works? Is it costing you money? You know, will you look at this? This is this avoids need for hot works. You know, and all the associated things. Even this storing and transport of flammable gases can be complex. Yeah, it's not all about what you're doing when you're on site. If you see what I mean, you're using oxyacetylene. You can't can't just leave that in your garage, can you? You know, in the blazing sun or whatever. You know, and insurance, etc. So all the associated costs with hot works, the speed of installation, which is you know, if you look at, if you're an installer, you get a much, if you're doing a quick clean job, that you know, that's perceived very positively by your client, and then the cleanliness of the system, which affects the longevity of it by not brazing, by using a mechanical joint. You know, these are all factors that people need to consider.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. I know you were mentioning earlier about the company having information about refrigerants as well in different sides, and how obviously with the cooling side, that's, I guess, with the BMaxi Pro, how that fits in, you know, and working with, you know, different system designs and making sure if it's a low GWP, you know, that they're getting that right. So
I think that side of it, even if you were brazing, you have to work with that still. So
exactly,
it's you know, that's a given, that the face of that is changing, and we just need to keep up with that as new. You know, in 10, 15 years time, that chart that I put up will probably look different. There'll be refrigerant gases that are no longer on it, and probably some new ones that are. You know, if you see what I mean. And you know, it's anyone's guess which one will be mostly used in the future.
brilliant. Yeah, I'm not getting
Certainly, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's never. I know that's the whole. I know it's putting out as a lot of responsibilities on people with all the different options at the minute. So yeah, no, it's not we're not turning it into an F-gas decision, but it was interesting. You know,
No.
that's one of those considerations that's, you know, as you said, that's factored into the wider ways of working on that. But I think that's brilliant. I know we're coming up to pretty much, I think, time on the Q&A. So thank you everyone for getting those over. And to Tom, Sam, and Mike for joining us there. I mean, I think it's probably a good way for us to bring the session more or less to an end. I think it was just, Mike, as it's obviously as it's the approachal side, it was just to, if it was just the last chance to just highlight, you know, if it's the latest range, just you know, talking about the Y joints, but you know, all the information, I guess, is online. Is there any specific message? You know, we're obviously with an RAC air conditioning and refrigeration audience. Something just in terms of sort of a leaving thought for people who perhaps, you know, she said, are working, are looking at how they use cooling systems or how they work on them.
Yeah. So my message to anybody who's listening to this and hasn't considered or has been thinking about using press fittings or converting to press fit technology is contact us. Go on the website, find me, and or any member of my team at UCB. Just contact us. We're very approachable. We're very contactable, and engage with us, and we will support your transition fully.
Brilliant. Well, that seems a positive way for us to bring it all together. Thank you once again, Tom, Sam, and Mike there. As you said, we'll be sending out the information. We'll have some contacts in for people and some of the slides today as well. So if we didn't directly get to your questions, they'll definitely be. Please do keep in touch. I think Mike and the team will welcome any follow-ups on this. I know some people had raised projects they were looking at with sort of external heat pump units and things, which I know you'll be more than happy to talk on there. But until then, I'd like to thank you, thank the team at Conex Bänninger today, but also our audience for the questions. I really appreciate it. So I think that kept us certainly with a good kept everyone on their toes, the technical side. And thank you for the time for joining us for RAC, and we hope you'll join us again soon. You'll be able to find coverage of today's event both online along with the video for recordings. So if there's anything you want to catch up with, there's plenty there, I think, detail to dig into. But you'll also see in the December issue of RAC Magazine if you're not subscribing as well. But until then, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you to the team, and I hope you have a great day as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.